Hi, good afternoon. We are here with Brad Audet, the CMO of Mazda North America. Nice to see you, Brad. Thanks
Good
for
to see you. Thank
making
you.
some time. How's Cannes been so far?
It's overwhelming, like it always is, right? More activities than you have time scheduled to do, running from one place to the next. But, you know, the spirit of creativity is alive in Cannes, and I think that's really important as we, you know, are continuing to see the industry evolve and the implications of AI and other things like that. So, you know, I'm really excited to see the work and have a lot of inspiring conversations about creativity.
Amazing. So I know that prior to your time with Mazda, you spent many years agency side. What's been the most difficult part of that transition?
Well, I wouldn't say it's difficult because each one of them present their own challenges, right? And they're two different types of problems and two different types of environments. The agency side is obviously very creative, very collaborative. And in the business environment in Mazda and as a role of a CMO, you know, you're taking on, still have a lot of co-creation and collaboration with your teammates, but the problem solving is a little bit different, right? It's a little bit more complex. It's not as kind of soft creative as it is quantitative or hard creative, right? So I think that part of it is has been a little bit of a challenge. And what you realize is, you know, when I worked at the agency, I probably spent 95% of my time exclusively focused on trying to grow Mazda's business.
Okay.
On the client side and being at Mazda as a CMO, I only probably spent 5 or 10% of my time thinking about the agency, right? And that's because there are a number of other things that we need to think about relative to all of the stakeholders that we serve in the Mazda ecosystem.
Okay, amazing. And I've heard you talk a lot previously around the importance of purpose-based leadership. Do you want to expand on that a little bit and how that infiltrates the day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think, you know, when you think about purpose and purpose-based leadership, I think that exists for people, it exists for businesses, it exists for brands, right? We all have to accept some level of responsibility in the betterment of humanity. I just spent the weekend just north of Cannes at a summit with the Institute for Real Growth, where we talked about the importance of humanized growth and helping to deliver the UN sustainability goals. And I think as advertisers, as marketers, as businesses, we have that responsibility for the betterment of the world that we live in. But I think even beyond that, when you talk about purpose is, you know, marketing has to have a purpose, right? And I think sometimes people conflate the two of them, and this idea that marketing should add value to the customer, right? Yeah. There's a value exchange there. So I say to my team, it's like, we have to market with purpose, right? Why are we communicating and how are we communicating to the people that we're trying to serve, right? And so I think you get a lot more generosity and consideration for people when you're offering them value.
And I've heard the Japanese term around omotenashi, and I've heard you speak about that before. Do you want to maybe expand on what that means for Mazda?
Well, I mean, simply if you think about omotenashi is a term that describes kind of the respect and how people treat each other in Japan. And it's a very deep-rooted tradition. If you've ever been to Japan, you will see that in a very simple way, they are guided by like your happiness being my happiness, right? So they serve you, they care for you. And so, you know, omotenashi is definitely a Japanese cultural construct, but then it's also maybe a little bit unique when it comes down to Hiroshima, where we're from and, you know, where we came in our soil. But then I think there's a unique Mazda interpretation of that as well, right? So we're, as one of our core values of who we are as a company, we believe in omotenashi. And it's very much about, you know, creating that happiness for all of the people we serve, whether it's our employees, our dealers. We talk, you know, about making it easy for them to do business with us, you know, our customers, the communities that we're in. All of those people need to benefit from that respect and that gratitude.
So on that, you've got this approach around being radically human, is a phrase that I hear a lot around Mazda. And I suppose as a marketeer, there's a bit of an intangible in that, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that you can measure? Or do you need to measure it?
Well, I think it's measured in a variety of different ways. I don't think that there's one measurement that says, are we delivering on radically human or not? You know, radically human is one of our core values, similar to Omatanashi and the Challenger Spirit. And radically human is really about putting people at the center of everything you do.
Yeah.
So why do you exist? To enrich lives. How do you create better environments, better experiences, better lives for people? And I think, you know, we as a car company were perfecting human centricity before it was even a concept that being talked about in the marketing world. And I think one of Mazda's key attributes is what we call Jimby Tai. And it's the connection between driver and machine, man and machine, horse and rider. It's that symbiotic connection that exists that allows them to operate as one. That's a very human-centric approach. You know, we've done a lot of science and a lot of study about how the human interfaces with the machine. And that's allowed us to perfect a driving characteristic unlike any other automotive company. If you apply that same kind of logic of where you're able to provide value to the human, lessen the tension, bring more happiness to the human, I think everything we do is built around, you know, for humans, by humans.
Yeah. So on that, growing up, cars for me were almost always a hugely aspirational, hugely emotive thing. It's like core part of youth is the aspiration around having a car, owning a car, driving a car. As we're moving into Gen Alpha coming through now, do you think that emotional connectivity is getting stronger? Is it being diluted? You know, how's automation of everything that we're seeing now kind of changing that approach or that spirit?
Yeah, I think the challenge we're dealing with right now is largely people are tethered to their technology. And when some of us were younger, you know, there was a freedom of mobility that came with being able to drive a car, right? Because we didn't have the same level of access to information and connections with other people that we do through technology. But I think the joy of movement is innate in the human DNA. And so I think there will always be a role for cars in people's lives. It might change in the way that it evolves, but there will always be a need, and there will always be the exhilaration and joy that come from great driving.
Got it. So changing tack slightly then, we've got lots of young aspirational marketeers here today, looking to those that have been there and done it before. For those that are kind of coming into the industry new, what guidance would you be giving to them?
So I think there's really two things. Number one is you have to invest in continuing to grow and learn as a person. And what I mean by that is you have to not only continue to grow your professional competency in the practice area that you're in, but you also need to continue to grow yourself as a person. Yeah. You need to find your ikigai, which is a Japanese expression that's really about what is your individual purpose? Why do you exist? And it's really, you know, finding that sweet spot between where there's a need in the world for something, what you're exceptionally good at, you know, where you can find passion. And I think it's important that people understand that there is no such thing as a linear career projection anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of tax, it's a lot of moving back and forth. And so you need to have a certain amount of agility, and you have to not allow yourself to be so judgmental of yourself, right? Because sometimes you have to take a step or two back to be able to take a step forward. And I think a lot of professional people right now, particularly people that have started new jobs in COVID, they don't have the apprenticeship that they used to get if they were in the office. They put an extraordinary amount of pressure on themselves for success. And I think you got to be able to take enough time to breathe.
That osmosis has been tricky for the guys coming through during COVID.
Very much so.
So what was the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Well, I think there was a number of them, but the one that always kind of stuck out to me as being ironic was I came from the agency, and a lot of the advice that are probably given to a lot of CMOs is fire the agency. And so, there was a lot of irony there in that for me. And obviously, I didn't fire the agency. We reconfigured our capability offering with WPP. But at the end of the day, it's the CMO and the marketing team's responsibility for curating the best out of the agency, right? There is no agency solution that's going to provide a silver bullet for a client's problems, right? So you have to be able to work in partnership with them. And it doesn't matter which independent agency you're with, which specialized agency you're with, which holding company you're with. They're all people.
Yeah.
And it's how you manage the people to get the best out of them for your brand and your business.
So last question for you then, Brad. I mean, we're here, AI is everywhere, everyone's talking about it. I don't want to go down that path specifically, but what do you think is the biggest myth in the world of marketing, advertising, consumer engagement just now that needs to be dispelled?
Well, specific to AI, or
well, is it that, or is it being overblown as a concept?
I do think that you talk to a number of practitioners, a number of experts in this space, and they will say that the AI thing might be a little over amplified, a little overhyped right now. I do think that AI in the short term is going to drive some significant efficiency in commoditized creative products, things that we would say that we're going to offshore these cut and clip kind of assets development, things like that. I do think there's an opportunity for AI to provide insights, through synthetic personas and things like that, which would enrich the creative product. I think you still got to have a human to come up with the real insights on customers and real creative campaigns. So I don't know that if it's a myth, but I think it's, people have to have a more methodical approach to how they're bringing AI to life in their business. Because a lot of people got really excited about it and said, I got to find a problem I can fix with AI.
Yeah, sure. So if you've got a hammer, then all you see is nails, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for making time this afternoon.
Yeah, good.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
rest of the can.
All right.